There are hidden secrets of the Straw Hats that have been mentioned only a few times throughout the entire series. Some secrets are known only to those who pay attention to various subtle Easter eggs. I'm sure you didn't even know a third of these secrets. Come closer and I'll show you each one of them. Did you know that the vast majority of Luffy's voice actors around the world are women? In the English, Brazilian, and Japanese dubs, Luffy is voiced by a woman. When Toei Animation was hiring people for One Piece, they faced a big problem. Oda had already released more than 100 chapters by the time they were launching the anime. But since Toei realized that this would be another one of those massive anime, they figured that if they hired a young actor to voice Luffy, the actor's voice would eventually mature over the years. So they decided to hire mature voice actors for Luffy. Have you noticed that Luffy goes around giving nicknames to everyone he meets? Lucci was the pigeon guy. Fox was the split-headed guy. Arlong was the fish head, Marco was the pineapple head, and there were many others with nicknames. Oda once said that Luffy doesn't do well with names, not just because he's an idiot, but because he forgets. When he sees someone, he locks onto a physical or visual characteristic of that person in his mind and adopts it as a name. The Straw Hats, on the other hand, are his family, important people who cannot be forgotten. When Luffy received his first wanted poster, Usopp was in the background. This was explicitly shown in both the anime and the manga, so everyone knows. But something you may not have noticed is that he's also in the background of Zoro's wanted poster. You can see him in the lower left corner doing his crocodile impression with a hook hand. Let's be real, Usopp was the one responsible for the bounty increases of these two. Sanji's name was originally supposed to be Naruto. The idea was to give him that name because Naruto is associated with ramen. For those who don't know, Naruto is a type of ingredient used in ramen dishes, consisting of a roll of fish paste, usually made from a mixture of minced fish and other ingredients. That's where Oda got the idea to give the crew's cook a name related to food. However, Oda abandoned the idea because at that very moment, a little-known manga called Naruto, with a protagonist also named Naruto, was about to be released. We had a crossover between One Piece and Dragon Ball back in 2006, and you probably didn't even notice. They simply brought together the two biggest mangas in the world in an epic crossover. In this story, the characters from One Piece and Dragon Ball came together for a big party. And notice this, Luffy is riding on a flying cloud, which only people with pure hearts can do. Even though he's a pirate, Luffy has a good heart. Here we have a rather interesting spelling error that occurred in the One Piece anime version in the United States. Many times, the directors wrote Zoro's name as Zolo, and this is actually not a mistake. This happens because of a peculiarity of the Japanese language. In Japan, the letters L and R are pronounced the same way. What's even more interesting is that in the 4Kids dub in the United States, he was called Zolo because they wanted to avoid copyright issues with another fictional character named Zoro. For us, Zoro's name is quite important, but I think it's not as much for Sanji, who tends to call him Mosshead because of his green hair. These two are always fighting and coming up with childish nicknames for each other. Their rivalry has reached a point where, in all 1,000 episodes, Zoro has never called Sanji by his real name. The rivalry is real. Sanji does call Zoro by his name sometimes, but Zoro has never uttered the name Sanji. He always refers to him as Cook of a Fig, Nosebleed, Cattle, and so on. Their rivalry is wonderful, but did you know that originally Zoro was not supposed to be part of the crew? In fact, the character Zoro was meant to be Buggy the Clown's first mate. If we look at Zoro's current design, we can still notice some aspects that suggest he would fit into Buggy's circus theme. He has the right face shape and hair color for it. Can you imagine how different the story would be if Zoro were just a temporary character? He would certainly stop being the tough guy we know and would turn into one of those weak, comedic villains that everyone is already tired of seeing. Do you think it's a lot for Zoro to fight with 3 swords? Well, little do you know that he has fought with a total of 9 different swords. He started with 3 swords, the Wado Ichimonji, which he still has today, and 2 unnamed swords that were broken by Mihawk. Since he was without those 2, he had to take the swords from Johnny and Yosaku to fight against the fishmen. However, he found 2 in a shop in Log Town, the Yubashiri and the Sandai Kitetsu. There in Ini's lobby, the Yubashiri was broken. But in Thriller Bark, he got the legendary Shusui from Ryuma. After that, he only managed to get one more in the Wano arc, where he traded the Shusui for the legendary Enma from Odin. The blacksmiths hate this guy. Nami has always been kind to children. One of the most obvious examples is when she saves the kids who were being used as experiments by Caesar Clown on Punk Hazard Island. Oda even said that if Nami weren't a pirate, she would be a childcare worker. But here's an Easter egg that you definitely missed about her. In chapter 97, Nami tries out 2 different looks, and at first glance, nothing seems wrong. However, what no one noticed is that one of them is identical to what Boa Hancock wore when she was first introduced, and the other is the same look that Robin had when she first appeared in the anime. Either Oda was lazy and reused old designs, or Nami has the ability to predict the outfits of future characters in the manga. And keep in mind that when chapter 97 was released, Oda hadn't even introduced Robin and Hancock in the story yet. Usopp was born to be a liar, but he also has a secret talent for scaring people. Back in Dressrosa, when Sugar was using her powers to turn Luffy's allies and the townspeople into toys, Usopp had to make an extremely scary face to knock her out. He changed his expression, and it was so terrifying that the girl fainted. But the face he made actually has a secret meaning. If you look at the entrance of the Goa Gajah cave in Indonesia, you can definitely see some similarities between that face and the expression Usopp made. In other words, Eiichiro Oda, the genius, strikes again. Since we're talking about a god, did you know that Usopp is almost a god on Skypiea Island? After the Straw Hats visited the island in the sky, the locals didn't make a statue of Luffy, who defeated Enel and saved everyone. They simply made a statue of Usopp, who did almost nothing throughout the entire arc. On Skypiea Island, there is a place called Wagomuland, where there is a huge statue of Usopp. They made him a bit more muscular than he actually is, and also had him holding a spear. I guess it's because it's more intimidating than having him hold a slingshot. But what's the reason for this? Well, during his time on the island, he taught the inhabitants to use rubber bands in various useful ways. This was apparently enough to justify building a statue of him. There's just one downside. Usopp's name at the entrance is incorrectly spelled as Usopp, missing a P at the end of the word. The truth is, you could go your whole life calling yourself a One Piece fan without knowing these facts that every fan should know. So subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so YouTube will always send our content your way, keeping you updated on everything happening in this world. Thank you very much for everything, a big hug, and see you next time.